You know, the most important battles we fight in life aren't the ones everyone can see. They're not the arguments at work, the financial pressures, or even the health struggles, though those can be tough. The most important battles are invisible, silent, and often underestimated. They're fought right here, in our minds. The mind is a battlefield where beliefs are shaped, fears are magnified, hope is either fed or starved. And the tricky thing is, nobody else can fight that battle for you. People can encourage you, pray for you, give you advice, but at the end of the day, it's your mind, your thoughts, your fight. And here's the reality: what happens in your mind doesn't stay in your mind. It spills over into your decisions, your relationships, your confidence, your faith. Your faith. What starts as a single thought can become the reason you take a leap forward, or the chain that keeps you stuck in the same place for years. Jesus understood this long before modern psychology ever talked about mindset. He knew that how we think shapes how we live. That's why so much of what he taught wasn't just about behavior, it was about what's going on up here. He spoke to the lies we believe, the worries that weigh us down, the pride that blinds us, the fear that freezes us. He knew that if the mind is renewed, the life will be transformed. Transformed. But here's where it gets personal. Most of us have been letting our thoughts run wild for far too long. We've been letting fear set the agenda. We've been letting shame be the narrator of our story. We've been letting doubt have the final word. And we wonder why we feel so drained, so stuck, so far from the life we know we're called to live. The battle of the mind isn't about pretending bad things don't happen. It's about learning how to respond when they do. It's not about forcing yourself to think a positive either all the time. It's about anchoring your mind in truth so it can withstand the storm. It's about replacing the thoughts that tear you down with the thoughts that lift you up, strengthen you, and lead you closer to the life God intended for you. And if you've been losing that battle lately, if you've been feeling overwhelmed by the noise in your head, I have good news for you. You're not alone, you're not powerless, and you're not too far gone. There's a way to fight back. There's a way to win. And the starting point is not where you might expect. So let's talk about what it looks like to take your thoughts captive, to quiet the lies, to stand your ground, and to fight the kind of battle that transforms everything about how you see yourself, your circumstances, and your future. Because when you win the battle in your mind, you can walk in the victory that was already promised to you. Every battle we face begins long before it shows up in the real world. It starts in our heads, the way we think, the stories we tell ourselves, the assumptions we make, the meaning we attach to events. All of that determines how we respond when life gets difficult. If you think you can't, you've already lost before you've begun. If you convince yourself it's impossible, you'll never even try. That's why the mind is the most important battleground we'll ever face. Think about it. Before a soldier steps onto a field, before an athlete steps into a game, before a leader steps into a meeting, they've already played out 1,000 scenarios in their heads. They've prepared their minds for what's coming. They've built a mindset that will serve them when pressure comes. But most of us aren't intentional about that. We let our thoughts wander, drift, and react. And when our thinking is left unguarded, it's far too easy for doubt, fear, and negativity to sneak in and take control. The enemy of progress isn't always a lack of resources or bad luck. Often it's the voice in our head telling us we're not enough, we can't do it, or we'll never get there. And the longer we let that voice run the conversation, the more it shapes our decisions, our actions, and ultimately, our future. Jesus understood this, which is why he spoke so much about the condition of the mind and heart. He knew that what takes root in your thinking will eventually bear fruit in your living. If you believe you are powerless, you will live powerless. If you believe you are unloved, you will live as if you are unworthy of love. And if you believe the future holds nothing good for you, you will stop moving toward it altogether. The challenge is that we can't stop thoughts from coming. We can't just flip a switch and say, I'm never going to think a negative thought again. That's not realistic. But we can choose which thoughts we give a home to. You can't stop a bird from flying over your head, but you can stop it from building a nest in your hair. The same goes for your thinking. You can't stop every doubt, but you can stop it from taking root. What's fascinating is how quickly the mind can be shaped, both for good and for harm. Feed it fear and it will grow anxiety. Feed it comparison and it will grow insecurity. But feed it truth and it will grow resilience. Feed it hope and it will grow courage. That's why the first step in winning any battle is not to pick up a sword. It's to pick up a better thought. Here's the part most people miss. We don't think our way into better living. We live our way into better thinking. In other words, if you want to change your mind, start by changing your habits. Choose what you watch, who you listen to, what you repeat to yourself every day. Start acting like the person you want to become, and eventually, your thinking will align. We've all met people who are in objectively difficult situations, people facing illness, loss, financial struggles, and yet they carry themselves with peace and confidence. That's not because their circumstances are easy. It's because they've trained their minds to focus on what they can control instead of obsessing over what they can't. And we've also met people who have more than enough, yet live in constant frustration and fear. The difference isn't the situation, it's the mindset. So, how do we start fighting this battle? First, by becoming aware. Most of us have mental scripts running on autopilot that we've never even questioned. We've been repeating certain beliefs to ourselves for so long that we've accepted them as truth without ever examining whether they're actually true. Awareness is like turning on the lights in a dark room. Suddenly, you can see what's been there all along. Second, we have to challenge those thoughts. When a negative or fearful thought comes, don't just accept it. Ask yourself, where did that come from? Is it even accurate? Is it helping me become who I want to be? If it's not, you have the choice to replace it with something better. And third, we have to practice this every single day. This isn't a one-time decision, it's a lifestyle. Just like you don't go to the gym once and expect to be in shape forever. You can't fight for your mind once and expect to have peace for the rest of your life. It's a daily battle, but it's one you can win if you stay consistent. The mind is where every victory begins and where every defeat is decided. You can have the skills, the opportunities, and the potential, but if your thinking is poisoned, you'll sabotage yourself before you even start. On the other hand, even if the odds are against you, a mind anchored in truth, hope, and purpose will carry you farther than you can imagine. The battle for your future will be won or lost in your mind. So fight there first. One of the most fascinating things about the way we operate as human beings is how often our mind becomes the biggest battleground we'll ever face. It's not always the circumstances outside of us that hold us back. It's the conversations happening inside our own head. Is the And one of the most common battles we fight is the battle over truth. Truth. Not truth in the sense of facts versus lies, though that's part of it, but truth in the sense of what we choose to believe about ourselves, about others, and about the world we live in. See, every single day our mind is bombarded with voices. Some are loud and demanding. Others are subtle, almost like whispers that slip in without us noticing. And those voices often plant seeds of doubt, fear, comparison, inadequacy. They tell you you're not enough. They tell you you're too late. They tell you your dream is too big, your past is too messy, your skills are too small. And what's fascinating is how quickly we take those voices and let them set the tone for how we see everything else. We don't even have to fact check them. Our mind, left unchecked, will grab those lies, frame them as a truth, and suddenly, they become the lens through which we view our life. But here's the thing. Our mind can't tell the difference between a truth that's been tested and a lie that's been repeated enough times. It just believes what it's fed, and that means we have to get intentional about what we're feeding it. If the loudest voice in your head is the one telling you you're going to fail, you will start walking, talking, and deciding like someone who is already defeated. If the loudest voice in your head is the one telling you you're not loved, you'll start acting like you have to earn it, prove it, or manipulate your way to it. And that's exhausting. That's why so many of us are tired. Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. What's incredible is that even Jesus understood this principle. When he faced temptation in the wilderness, the battle wasn't fought with swords or shields, it was fought with words. And not just any words, words of truth. Every single time a lie or a distortion came his way, he countered it, not with willpower, but with something deeper, something grounded. And that's the model for us. The battle of the mind isn't about pretending we don't hear the lies. It's about recognizing them and then replacing them with something stronger. And here's where most of us slip. We think we can just not think about it. We think the solution is to push the thought away. But that's like trying to fight fire with more fire. The way you push out the lie isn't just by resisting it, it's by replacing it with truth so powerful that the lie loses its hold. Think about it like this: if your mind is a playlist and you keep replaying the same song of fear, doubt, or insecurity, the only way to change the soundtrack is to load it with something new. That might be a promise you repeat to yourself. It might be a vision you write down and keep in front of you. It might be surrounding yourself with people who speak life into you when your own thoughts are trying to pull you under. I've met people who seem incredibly strong on the outside, but the moment you talk to them, you realize they've been losing the battle in their mind for years. They've built an entire life reacting to lies rather than living from truth. And the sad part is, they don't even know it anymore. That's why the work we do in our mind is not optional, it's foundational. It's not about ignoring reality. It's not about plastering a fake smile over deep pain. It's about being brutally honest about what you've been believing and asking, is this actually true? And if it's not, what do I need to replace it with? That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Because you cannot win a war you refuse to acknowledge, and you cannot live in freedom while renting space in your mind to things that keep you chained. And once you start making those shifts, once you begin to filter your thoughts through what's real and not just what's loud, everything changes. Your decisions change, your relationships change, your confidence changes. And suddenly, what used to feel like a battlefield starts to feel like solid ground again. The mind will always be a place where battles are fought. But here's the hope: you get to choose your weapons. And when you choose truth, when you anchor your thoughts to something that can't be shaken, you discover something even more powerful. The lies lose their voice, and you gain yours. Because the battle of the mind isn't really about silencing every negative thought. It's about making sure the right voice wins. So, sometimes the battle in our minds feels less like a clean, one-time fight and more like a war that doesn't end. We think, if I could just win this one round, I'll be fine. But the truth is, life doesn't work like that. The same fears have a way of showing up again. The same insecurities creep back in. And sometimes they come at the worst possible moment, when you're already tired, already stretched thin, already doubting yourself. That's why the key isn't just to win once, but to keep winning. It's about learning how to stay in the fight without burning out. What I've realized is that we often approach mental battles with the wrong expectation. We think it should be quick. We think, I've prayed, I've read, I've encouraged myself, so why am I still struggling? And because the problem didn't vanish overnight, we assume something's wrong with us, or worse, that God's not listening. But maybe it's not that He's silent. Maybe it's that He's strengthening something in you. Sometimes the fight isn't just about defeating the thought, it's about developing the endurance to stand even when the thought comes back again. Think about a soldier. They don't train for one battle and then retire. They train so they're ready for every battle. In the same way, winning the battle in your mind means developing habits, rhythms, and resilience so you're not just reacting, you're prepared. That means catching your thoughts before they spiral. That means identifying the lies quickly so they don't grow roots. That means replacing those lies with truth every time. Now here's the challenge: when you're tired, it's easy to stop replacing lies. It's easier to just agree with them because it takes less effort. Maybe I'm not good enough. And if you're not careful, those thoughts start to sound familiar. And when something sounds familiar, it starts to feel true. That's why the repetition of truth is so important. You have to keep speaking life into your mind, over and over, even when you don't feel like it. I've had moments where my thoughts were so loud I couldn't even think straight. My instinct was to fight harder, to wrestle the thought until it left. But here's the shift. Sometimes the best way to win is not to wrestle endlessly, but to redirect. Not every thought deserves your attention. Not every thought deserves your attention. Some thoughts don't need a debate. They just need to be replaced. And the quicker you replace them, the less power they have over you. The real battle is consistency. Anyone can be strong for a day. But can you keep showing up, keep guarding your mind, keep filling it with what's true, even when you're tired of doing it? That's where the real growth happens. Every time you choose to believe the truth over the lie, you're not just winning that moment, you're building mental strength for the next. For the next. And here's the hope. You're not fighting alone. You were never meant to. The one who designed your mind knows exactly how to restore it. The one who gave you breath knows how to speak peace into your thoughts. And the more you lean on that truth, the more you'll notice, little by little, day by day, the lies lose their grip. Because the enemy isn't just after one bad day, he's after your consistency. But when you keep showing up with faith, when you keep replacing lies with truth, when you keep choosing to fight with hope instead of fear, you become unshakable. Not because the thoughts never come, but because they no longer control you. And when that happens, you can look at the storm in your mind and say, I've been here before, and I know how this ends. I will not lose my peace. That's when you win, not just once, but every single time. There's a reason the mind is called a battlefield. It's because there's always a fight going on up there. Every day, your thoughts are competing for dominance. And here's the tricky part. Not every thought that pops into your head belongs to you. Some are planted by fear, some are whispered by insecurity and security. Some are handed down from years of habits or the voices of people who didn't see your potential. And if you're not intentional about what you allow to take root, your mind will start building stories that don't serve you, and worse, they'll feel true. We tend to assume that if we think something, it must be real. I'm not good enough. This will never work. I'll probably fail. Thoughts like these can feel so certain because they show up with emotion attached. But what you have to realize is that your brain is simply doing what it's wired to do, protect you from pain. And unfortunately, it often tries to protect you from pain by keeping you from progress. That's why so many people feel stuck, not because they don't have the ability, but because they've believed a story their mind keeps repeating. And here's where the battle gets interesting. You can't always stop a thought from showing up, but you can decide whether it gets to stay. You can't control the first thought, but you can control the second one. You can take that initial wave of doubt, frustration, or fear and say, oh no, that's not the story I'm going to live by. That's not just self-help talk, it's strategy and strategy. Because when you decide to rewrite the script in your mind, you change the entire trajectory of your actions. Think about how this plays out in everyday life. You wake up with a big presentation to give, and your first thought is, I'm going to mess this up. If you let that thought sit there, it'll influence everything. Your energy, your tone, your body language. But if you catch it and replace it with, I've prepared for this, I'm capable, I'm going to deliver value, suddenly your posture changes. You walk into that room differently. The circumstances didn't change, your mind did. And when your mind changes, your world changes. That's why it's important to not just recognize the battle, but to choose your weapons. If fear shows up, counter it with truth. If self-doubt tries to settle in, challenge it with evidence of past wins. Challenge it with evidence of past wins. If negativity starts whispering in your ear, drown it out with gratitude. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about refusing to let the loudest voice in your head be the one that holds you back. But here's the catch. You can't fight the battle of the mind once a year or even once a month. This is a daily commitment. You have to train your brain the same way an athlete trains their body. You don't build mental strength in the middle of the storm. You build it every day so that when the storm comes, you're ready. That means paying attention to what you consume, what you watch, what you read, who you listen to, because all of it is feeding your thoughts. Some of you have been losing battles not because you're weak, but because you've been feeding the wrong side. You've been surrounding yourself with voices that confirm your fears instead of challenge them. You've been rehearsing worst case scenarios instead of envisioning best case outcomes. And here's the truth: the side you feed will always win. If you keep feeding fear, it'll grow. If you keep feeding hope, it'll grow too. Winning the battle of the mind starts with deciding who gets the microphone in your head. And that decision over time will transform not only your thoughts, but your habits, your relationships, your confidence, and ultimately your life. So today, in this moment, make the choice. Not tomorrow. Not when it's convenient. Right now. Because every thought is a seed, and whatever you plant will eventually show up in your life. Plant with intention. Guard the garden of your mind. And remember, your greatest battles will often be invisible, but the victories will be undeniable. Your mind may be a battlefield, but you are not a victim. You are a fighter. And if you win here, you can win anywhere.